Welcome to Film and Book Stuff, the place where I share my thoughts on all things entertaining. I'm Susan May, a dark thriller author and a film and book reviewer. Every week you can also catch me on a Thursday at 2:10pm Perth, West Australian time on Radio Curtin FM 100.4, where I have a film review spot. From time to time I'll interview authors and film folk, and I'll also shortly be sharing my radio spot as a podcast, so stay tuned. This week I was lucky enough to talk to Sara Foster, a fellow author living in Perth who's just released her fourth book, All That Is Lost Between Us. It's a mystery, a family thriller, and we discuss domestic noir, how she became a superwoman, what this woman fits into a week boggles the mind, I assure you. And I discover we share a love for a certain movie when I ask Sara what book, recipe and film she would take if aliens ferried her away to their planet, never to return. I hope you enjoy this interview with the immensely talented and absolutely adorable Sara Foster. Very lucky today, I have with me Sara Foster, one of my favourite authors and a fellow Perthite, if that's what you call it. We call ourselves sand gropers. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, and we're going to talk today, Sara, about your latest book, which is just released this week, called All That Is Lost Between Us. Quite the mystery, and it's in that genre that they're now calling domestic noir. So it's basically, there's books that I guess we've heard about, like Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, Leanne Moriarty's The Husband's Secret, and most recently the big hit Paula Hawkins' Girl on the Train. So Sara's book is in the same genre. It's a mystery, a family's involved, there's a lot at stake, and it made me wonder if they were actually catching up to you, because I know you've been running this genre a lot longer than some of these other authors.
Well, it would be nice to think that. I think, interestingly enough, I read an article recently by Sophie Hannah, who's also another writer in this genre, who's been writing in this genre for quite a long time. And she was saying that she had an interview where they'd asked her about the new grip lip, they called it.
Oh, okay. Same as domestic noir.
Yeah, I think so. And they were wanting some kind of soundbite about the grip lip, and instead she ended up giving them a whole reading list of how far the popularity of this kind of genre goes back. So, it's a pleasure to be in a genre that's a hot genre.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're always looking for that. But I think all my books have been about family relationship secrets interspersed with a lot of suspense and mystery. Yes,
exactly. And I think that's what people want to read now. I think they're getting a bit over the detective stories.
Perhaps,
and they want, I guess perhaps, do you think they want characters they can identify with more?
Yeah, well, the great thing about writing about families is that it's so universal. Yeah. So it's so easy to recognise, if not your own family, another family or somebody you know or some situation you know. Even if you've put these particular families in quite extreme situations, the basic tenets of them are very universal and recognisable to us all. So that's the great thing about writing family.
Exactly, yeah. Interestingly enough, I noticed that in your last two books, the main character has actually been a teenager. And I marvel at that you've written a teenager so well, in both cases a female protagonist, because I've tried to write teenagers and I just can't get the lingo. I feel really awkward, strangely enough. It's an awkward teenage, an age of a teenager is awkward, and yet you've managed to capture them so well. So we're on board with Georgia, with the things that are happening in her life, and she's very believable. But you're certainly, you're young, but you're not a teenager.
No, sadly, no. I think that the teenage years obviously made quite an impression on me. I wouldn't say I had the easiest time. I'm not sure that many people do.
No.
But I think part of me's probably stayed in that mindset of what it was like to be a teenager. I do remember it quite vividly, how much opportunity there is when you're a teenager, but how socially awkward and confronting all these choices are that you have to make, and how life seems so big that it's hard to narrow it down and fit it into holes. And in some ways I quite like that as well. I always think that teenagers get a bit of a bad rap for being moody and grumpy and all those kind of things. But, I just love that they're on the cusp of exploring all
Yes.
these different things, and it's such an exciting time for them, but also such a difficult time. I guess maybe you can't have one without the other.
No. Well, because it's the inexperience, I guess.
Yeah.
In your books, they're making decisions based on their limited experience of what could possibly happen. Whereas as adults, we're with them thinking, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
You know, as we are with our own children.
Yeah.
And then you're finding out what the consequences are, and as they're finding out what the consequences are.
Well, funnily enough, I find all that really fascinating. Ironically, I don't think I'm any more successful than the population that actually talking to teenagers.
Yes, they sort of have their own language, I
Yeah.
must say. They talk to you. My sons, I've got 2 teenagers, and they say things to me, and I go, I don't understand what you're saying. And then they go, don't worry about it, you know. So I guess in a way it's a good thing, because we can read your books, the last 2 books, and we can actually understand them a little bit better.
Well, maybe we should ask the teenagers.
Is this true?
Yeah.
Because it sounds true to me, but
Yeah.
you know. So Sarah, what inspired you to write the book?
Well, teenagers were a big part of it, actually. I'd recently seen some news articles at that time that I thought were really interesting. I can't go into details without giving the plot away. But as often happens with news articles, I thought, what's going on behind the scenes there? You know, how are the family affected? What are the longer term repercussions in this situation? I always find that really fascinating. And I also based Come Back to Me on a news article that I'd read, so it wasn't the first time.
Yeah.
But I also had the desire to write a story that took place over a really short time frame, because Shallow Breath was 30 years and 5 continents in this wide story. I had to try and fit into one novel. And so I just wanted to do something different for a new challenge. And my original challenge was tell the story in 24 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I realised as I got into it that I couldn't possibly make that work, but I could make 48 hours work. So the whole thing is told over 48 hours.
Oh, okay. A lot happens in 48
Yeah.
hours.
Well, I like to have a bit of a new challenge or a new style or something in a book, because I think it keeps me working with a fresh eye and a fresh mind on it. So there was that as well. There was also a few images that came towards the beginning of the writing process. One was a young girl running across an open landscape, which I kept thinking of Jane Eyre, the film in 2011, where she runs across to escape Rochester. And I knew that kind of came in somewhere, but I didn't know quite how or why. And it wasn't until I went to the school in the Lake District and saw all the fell running things that I started to think, I've got a fell runner. So.
Did you know about that, the fell running, before you
No,
went there?
nothing,
Okay, because I've never heard of it. So,
nothing.
which we're not going to say anything about it. You need to read the book in order to know what we're talking about. The fell running, it's kind of very interesting. That's all I'll say. Actually, that brings me a little bit to a question further along that I was going to ask, because in Shallow Breath and All That Is Lost Between Us, the environment and the countryside play quite an important role. I feel it's almost like it's a character. In Shallow Breath, it was the ocean and the seaside and set in Western Australia. And here we've got, in All That Is Lost Between Us, English Lake District and the mountains. So do you have an affinity with the land and the environment?
I think I probably do, with what it can provide as well as inspiration. So Beneath the Shadows, my second book, was also set on the North Yorkshire moors, and it's very rich in the moors background.
Yes.
So I think I look for that. I look for setting in as much. I don't just consider setting a backdrop. I think it can really weave into the characters' lives, the characters' minds, how everything works together. It can obviously help the language a lot. And so I'm always looking for detail in the settings, and I get quite involved in that. I find places fascinating and the history fascinating, and tiny little details that you might miss elsewhere fascinating. So yeah, it definitely comes alive for me as an extra character in these books.
Yes, I think that's one of the interesting things about your books, that it's more immersive because you are talking about the landscape and you can imagine yourself being there. I found that interesting, and then you learn things about dolphins and fell running. Not that there's dolphins in this book, but I think it's great. And then also you've got that opportunity to travel there, haven't you? Because I know you went to the Lake District to do some research.
Yeah, I did. Well, I love it when readers say that they want to go there.
Yes.
Because you think, I'm glad I did, a good enough job for that. I took a brief trip to the Lake District in 2013 to research. And I visited a school while I was there, which was very helpful. And I also visited the mountain rescue team, which was really interesting and very useful.
Were they good? How do you approach them? Do you just ring them up?
I just found them online, and said, I'm coming over, can I speak to somebody? I was amazed with how gracious and generous people were at the time.
Wow.
So, I was very appreciative of that because they really filled in a lot of detail for me. And, and just being immersed in the landscape was such a great thing. I couldn't go fell running because I was 5 months pregnant. At least that's my excuse.
Oh, that was quite a while ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, okay. So, that's a good excuse.
Yes,
you don't want to be fell running. I wouldn't be fell running regardless. But anyway, I'm probably too old to fell run.
Well, I'm not sure it would have happened for me. Well, I know it wouldn't have happened for me either, but I always use that excuse.
Oh, that's a good one. I like it. That brings me to ask as well, I know prior to being an author, you were an editor with HarperCollins UK, because you live in Australia now, but you're from the UK. What made you decide to move into, I guess, writing the books as opposed to editing the books?
Well, even though I loved editing the books, and I still enjoy editing books when I actually get chance, although I don't a lot nowadays because it's divided between writing and mum time.
Yes.
But even though I enjoyed that, I always wanted to be on the other side of the desk. I remember people coming into HarperCollins when I was in my 20s and just wishing I was them, just watching them and just thinking that's what I want to do. I don't want to follow any kind of corporate path I was surprised, and I think it floored me for a while because I didn't quite know what to do with my ambitions because I knew it was so hard to be a writer. So book editing for a number of years was a great way for me to learn some of the trade, learn lots of background detail. It helped me enormously in all sorts of ways. So, I think it's more hovering around the edges until I was ready to dive in.
Was that a move that you thought, have you always wanted to be a writer, or was that something that you felt once you became an editor?
No, I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was a child. I would write stories and little books and...
okay. That's something I didn't know about you.
Yeah, well, I think even in my little school, I have a school journal that we were looking through the other day with my daughter, and I think age 6 I put down I want to be an author. So,
wow. Oh, that's fantastic. And then that makes sense to go into the path of editing. So you're in the business, you know people in the business, you understand, like you say, how hard it is, and that not to get upset when an editor
that was
sends back lots of red marks on your manuscript.
That was really useful when I actually got into being edited myself because I was able to really understand what the editing process was all about.
Because it can be, how does it feel being on this side and then you're getting edited? Because I know myself, whenever my editor emails back to me with the manuscript, I look at it and I'm frightened. Like I don't, even before I open it, I think, oh my gosh, what's she going to say? Right. How do you feel now that you're on the other side?
Not so much, but I feel quite excited actually most of the time.
Oh, do you? I am excited. You know what I mean? I'm just looking at it thinking, is there a lot of work waiting when I click on this file?
That's hard. And you're not always ready for some of the comments, so it takes you a bit of processing. Yes,
because sometimes they're not paid to be. I mean, they're pleasant. My editor's pleasant, but she's not paid to mince words.
No, that's right.
They'll straight away go, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't like what you've done here.
Yeah.
It's not, if you could just change it. It's, I don't like what you've done here.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so it's interesting that you're now on the other side.
Yeah.
A good thing. Well, we're glad that you've come over to this side. It's a good thing to have you here in the domestic noir genre. And what's the other thing it's called? Domestic noir?
Griplit, was it?
Griplit?
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I like that. That sounds a little bit risque, if you ask me. I don't want to even get into that. But if you said that 3 times quickly,
fair enough.
I could get into trouble here. Now, and I know you're like me, Sarah. You're a mum. You're a really busy person. But I think you've taken busy this year, and I think it was last year, to a whole new level. You are a writer. You homeschool your daughter, who is in grade 2. You've got a little one who is 2. You're studying a PhD. Is it a PhD?
Yes.
Yes. In what is the subject?
It's in fiction. So it's in dystopian fiction.
So you have to write a book, which you told me I think is a trilogy.
Yeah, I won't write the whole trilogy within the
in
time
a PhD, but you're still doing that. and you're a wife,
Yes.
and you've finished this book off, and you've signed on to do another book with Simon and Schuster.
Yes.
So, oh my gosh, do you sleep?
Yes, very well most of the time.
But do you have time? Like, do you set your alarm? Okay, I can have 2 hours sleep, and I have to get up at 3 because I've got all this on.
I do sleep pretty well actually,
Yeah.
except when I'm stressed out about one thing or another. But
Yeah. How do you do it? Like, how do you juggle it? That is a lot, because most people say, oh, once the kids leave school, and they're out of the house, then I'll be a writer. But you're like schooling them as well. Like, at least my kids go to school and then I can do my writing. But you're full on the whole time. How do you juggle all this?
Well, it's a combination of not being too stressed when it goes chaotic.
Yes.
Because it does.
Yes.
But also I plan heavily.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly planning, and I have a little planning clipboard thing that I use every night to plan my next day.
Oh, really?
And
Okay, down to
way
that.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know exactly what I've got to do every day.
Yeah.
And if it's a writing day, it's about writing. If it's a girls' day, it's about the girls and what they need and all the other things in life that we need to do. And sometimes it overlaps, obviously, because there's stuff going on in both areas. So, I think planning, compartmentalising, which I've had to learn to do, because when I only had one child, I could still think about my novel a lot. With 2, I don't get a lot of time.
No.
So, just being prepared for, from 9 till 12 on a Tuesday, this is work, and nothing else, and trying to compartmentalise the different
parts of your life.
Yeah.
And is there times that are better for you? Like, do you know that between 9 and 12 on a Tuesday you write better?
Well, no. This is a whole new experience for me, really, still writing like this.
Yeah.
And what I do find frustrating is the gaps, because I like to try and do something every day or most days.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been so easy lately, but we are working on getting me those run, even if it's not so long. I don't need hours every day. I just need to keep my head in it.
That's true.
So, I think that in general it's just down to a lot of planning and preparation, and then just watching it roll out rather than constantly be trying to decide what to do next. But in terms of when I write best, I used to write really well at night, but now I'm just shattered.
Yes, I know.
So
I know what that's like.
Do it.
I'm the same. I can't really. I try and do stuff at night, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
I think you learn when you're a mum, and I guess this is inspiration for other people. You just juggle.
Yeah.
And you teach yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, if I've got 30 minutes, that's it. I'm not going to sit there and do a dance around to get myself into a mood, or I need my coffee. If you've got 15 minutes, you're in.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you've found.
Yeah.
You've just got, you can't be prissy, can you?
Well, no, you can't. And also, if you need to move the boundaries, you move the boundaries. You can't expect too much of yourself and constantly beat yourself up. And I'm saying this as a learner, not as someone who's graduated from that particular school.
No.
But I have to learn to move those boundaries if I haven't achieved what I want to achieve, because I'm trying to achieve a lot. So
you're an example of, if you want to get something done, you ask a busy person.
People who say that to me.
You're like, you ask the crazy busy person, let's get a 2-book deal with the crazy busy person. I just take my hat off to you. I can't, and you still smile every time. I don't see Sarah very often, but every time I see her, she's got a huge smile on her face. Her daughters are gorgeous, and she seems like a very good mum.
Oh, that's nice. I think I'm at my actual capacity of things.
Oh, I think so. Okay, so nobody. Yes, no.
I won't be taking on much more in the meantime.
No, she can't do anything more. So if you're thinking, other than a few interviews for this book, that's it.
Yeah.
Don't call her.
That's right.
She doesn't need any more friends. She doesn't need any more contracts. And no more PhDs.
I'm maxed out.
Yeah, she's maxed.
Yeah.
She's done. So I guess that's all the questions I've got. But I've got my little tricky question that I thought I would ask. It's just a question to get an idea of who you really are. Aliens arrive to take you away to their planet. Now, I've sent the aliens because that's what I write. I don't write in your genre. When I hear news reports, I think, oh, good, there's a news report about somebody I can murder. Something horrific can happen to that poor person. So I'm sure characters much prefer to be in your books than my books. So I've brought aliens, but they're friendly aliens. I've allowed for that because I thought I don't want to be too negative or nasty, or no one will want to be interviewed by me. And they're very kind, and they'll let you bring your family. So if you want to, you don't have to take them, but if you've homeschooled them, I suppose you want to bring them along.
They should come, really.
Let them come, and the husband can come as well. But they'll only let you take one book, one recipe, and one film on DVD that you can watch. So what would those be?
Well, I'm glad, Susan, that you gave me a little bit of advance warning on this question. Otherwise, right now, I'd be going, oh.
I know, it's hard, isn't it?
I find it really impossible to choose these. Even when people say, what's your favourite book? I'm like, there's so many.
Yeah,
how do I narrow it down?
And
so very hard question. However, I think in terms of books, I've come up with, do I have to just say one, or can I
one?
Say
it's one. You can slip in the second one after, but one.
All right. So I would take Winnie the Pooh.
Is this for your children?
No.
Okay.
I would take Winnie the Pooh, but I did have a close call with Wisdom Through the Ages by Wayne Dyer, which is kind of the grown-ups version of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I really like that book. I just think it's very grounding, and it's something I come back to, if I'm struggling.
Okay.
But I just think Winnie the Pooh's got it all there, and the kids would like it. So.
The mum's sneaking in. She's multitasking here, multi-compartmentalising.
I've got to take the family. So
okay. And the recipe.
Recipe.
You can only cook one meal. Forever.
If I could only cook one meal forever, that'd be a bit of a different scenario. What would I do if I could only cook one meal? I was going to say... because sometimes you have recipes in your head, don't you? The basic things. Yeah,
well, you're not allowed. You can only have one recipe.
I was going to say my mum's gravy. So it'd have to be like Christmas dinner with my mum's gravy recipe.
I'll take that. Oh, your mum's gravy.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's so special?
Well, I just think your mum's gravy is like no one else's gravy. You've grown up with it, and... It's just they make it in a say way, so I'd get Mum to, tell me before I got
so I'm going, I just need that gravy recipe.
Do
you know what? I think that's a great... shows how smart you are, because even if the food the aliens give you is horrible, you can stick your mum's gravy on it, and it'll be perfect. It'll be like your home. I love it. You've done that so well. And film. One film.
Yeah, well, that was really tough as well, and I ended up... So because I couldn't decide, I ended up going to... Again, family scenario. So I thought either It's a Wonderful Life or The Snowman, because they're our Christmas family.
Lovely.
So maybe It's a Wonderful Life because it would, it brings out a few more things and it's longer than The Snowman. So while we're bored on planet Zog.
And eventually the girls are going to grow up and they won't want to watch The Snowman.
Well, that's right. But we still watch The Snowman every year.
Oh, do you?
The Snowman.
I can't even... Is that the one with Michael Keaton?
No, the animated Raymond Briggs cartoon.
Oh, you know what? I haven't seen it.
Oh, really?
No.
It's a fan. We've watched it ever since I was a kid.
But you know what? I know why I love you so much, because It's a Wonderful Life is my that's what I would take. How's that?
Brilliant.
Because it's my favourite film ever. So this is why Sarah and I are connected.
We are.
So, it's just fantastic. And now I know more about you, and I know about the gravy. Yeah. I know about the book. That was an interesting one.
Yeah.
And yes, it's been fantastic. So I have to thank you, Sarah. I've loved having you here. I've loved hearing all about all that is lost between us and your writing process. I admire you so much. And I hope that anyone listening to the podcast here will go out and buy this book and buy Sarah's other books, because they're all fabulous in the domestic noir and the thrill.
The Griplit.
Oh, the Griplit. Oh, that's a terrible name. But the books are fantastic. Thank you, Sarah, so much for being with me.
Thank you for having me, Susan. It's always a pleasure.
You're welcome. And you've been listening to Sara Foster, Be Grilled by Susan May, and Be Carted Off by Aliens. And her book is All That Is Lost Between Us. It's a fabulous read. It's just been released February 2016 in Australia. Thank you and goodbye.